When I was about 14 years old, there was this one creepy night I'll never forget. It all happened when my dad and I were returning home from visiting our cousin. It was late at night, and we had made a routine stop at our regular gas station, which was owned by Mr. William, a close friend of my father's. Every time we stopped there, we never left early. My dad and Mr. William had this habit of chatting away about politics, government issues, and the problems faced by common folks, while I got to pick out whatever snacks and drinks I wanted. That night wasn't any different at first. We pulled up to the gas station, and my dad and Mr. William started their usual banter inside the store. I wandered through the aisles, grabbing a bag of chips and a soda. But as I made my way back to the car, I noticed something strange. The usually buzzing gas station was eerily empty and silent. It sent a shiver down my spine. I was about to head inside the store to check on my dad when he suddenly burst out of the door, his face twisted in anger and fear. He hurriedly told me to stay inside the car and lock the doors. Something was very wrong, and I could tell by the look on his face that it wasn't just their usual chit-chat that had upset him. I watched as my dad nervously pumped gas into our car, his eyes darting around, clearly on high alert. He fumbled with his phone and called our local police officer, who happened to be a friend of his and was already on his way to the gas station. I couldn't hear much of what my dad was saying on the phone, but I could tell he was worried. His voice trembled as he described the situation to the officer. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, my dad finished filling up the gas tank. He got back into the car, and without saying a word, he peeled out of that gas station as fast as he could. I didn't need to ask any questions. I knew something was terribly wrong, and my dad's fear was palpable. As we drove away, I couldn't help but glance back at the gas station one last time. The eerie emptiness of the place sent chills down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something truly sinister had happened there. The next day, I was in for a shock. The local newspaper had a headline that sent a chill down my spine: gas station owner shot in head, robbery suspected. The article described how a criminal had apparently entered the gas station, shot Mr. William in the head, and made off with the cash from the register. It was a horrifying and brutal crime, and the police were actively working on the case. As I read the article, I couldn't help but thank my lucky stars that my dad had stopped me from going inside the gas station that night. I couldn't even begin to imagine how badly it would have affected my young and impressionable mind to witness such a gruesome scene. Now, as a 32-year-old man reflecting on that night, I can't help but feel a sense of gratitude for my father's protectiveness. He may have passed away in a car accident last year, but he had saved me from a traumatic experience that I would have carried with me for the rest of my life. I often wonder what would have happened if my dad hadn't acted so quickly and decisively that night. That gas station, once a familiar and comforting place, now stands as a haunting memory in my mind. I'll never forget the creepy stillness and the fear that gripped my father as he filled up our car. It was a nightmarish experience that, thankfully, I never had to witness up close. I used to be a wild one. Always out late, partying, driving around like a madman. I'm not gonna lie, it was fun at the time. But looking back, I see it for what it was, a waste of time. One night, I was driving home from a party. I was alone, and it was late. I was taking my usual route, which went past an old-fashioned gas station. The station was owned and run by an old woman named Clara. She was a friendly old soul, but she always gave me lectures about how I was wasting my life. I guess I reminded her of her own son, who had moved away to Florida for work. I hated her lectures, but I couldn't help but feel like she was right. I knew I needed to make some changes in my life, but I wasn't sure where to start. That night, as I was driving past the gas station, I saw a pickup truck parked in the corner. The truck was unfamiliar to me, and I noticed that the driver was still inside. I had a bad feeling about it, but I ignored it and kept driving. I stopped at the gas station to fill up my tank. I got out of my car and walked over to the pumps. Clara was standing in the doorway of the gas station, watching me. "Hey, Clara," I said. "How's it going?" "I'm fine," she said. "But you're not. You're still wasting your life." I sighed. "I know, Clara. I'm working on it." "I hope so," she said. "You're a good kid. You deserve better." I didn't say anything. I just filled up my tank and paid her. "Be careful tonight," she said as I was leaving. "I have a bad feeling about that truck." I nodded and got back in my car. I drove away, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I got home and went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Clara had said. I knew she was right. I was wasting my life. I decided that I needed to make a change. I needed to get my life together. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a run. I felt good. I felt like I was finally on the right track. I went to work, and I worked hard. I came home and cooked myself a healthy dinner. I read a book and went to bed early. I did the same thing the next day, and the next. I started to feel like myself again. I was happy. I was content. One morning, I was getting ready for work when I saw a news report on TV. The report was about a robbery and murder at a gas station. I watched in shock as the reporter showed a picture of the victim. It was Clara. I was devastated. I couldn't believe that she was gone. And I couldn't believe that I could have saved her. I remembered what she had said to me the night before the robbery. She had warned me about the pickup truck. But I had ignored her. If I had listened to her, she might still be alive. I've been living with that guilt for years now. I know that I can't change the past, but I can learn from it. I can use it to motivate me to be a better person. I'm still not perfect, but I'm trying. I'm trying to live my life to the fullest and to make the most of every day. I'm trying to be the kind of person that Clara would be proud of. I'll never forget her. She was a good woman, and she didn't deserve to die like that. But her death was a wake-up call for me. It made me realize that I needed to change my life. And it made me realize that I needed to start listening to the people who care about me. I'm grateful for the time that I had with Clara. She was a wise old woman, and she taught me a lot about life. I'm a better person because of her. It was a late, drizzly night, the kind of evening that made you long for the warmth of your home and the comfort of your favorite instant noodles. I had been burning the midnight oil at the office again, and my growling stomach was begging for a quick fix. So, I pulled into the dimly lit gas station, its neon sign flickering in the rain, and headed inside to grab a snack. The convenience store was mostly empty, save for a few shelves of chips and candy. I made my way to the instant noodle aisle, scanning the choices as I tried to decide which flavor would satisfy my hunger best. That's when I noticed him, a man named Dave, as I would soon come to know. Dave was standing by the beverage cooler, gazing at the array of soft drinks as if he couldn't make up his mind. I gave him a polite nod and picked up a pack of my favorite noodles. He smiled back, and we started chatting. At first, it was a friendly exchange of small talk. We discussed the weather, the late hour, and our mutual preference for midnight snacking. As we continued talking, I couldn't help but notice the sadness in Dave's eyes. It was as if he carried a heavy burden on his shoulders, a secret he desperately wanted to share. And then, out of nowhere, he turned to me, his voice trembling with an eerie undertone. "I did something wrong," he said, his gaze fixed on the floor. "And soon, I have to repeat it." His words sent a shiver down my spine. I didn't know what to say, so I stammered out a feeble, "I'm sorry to hear that." Dave suddenly seemed apologetic, as though he had said too much. He mumbled an apology and left the store in a hurry, leaving me feeling uneasy. With my noodles in hand, I headed back to my car. I got inside and began fixing my rearview mirror, trying to shake off the strange encounter. But then, as I adjusted the mirror just right, I froze. In the reflection, I saw Dave. He was sitting in the back seat of my car, typing away on his phone as if nothing were amiss. Panic surged through me, and I leaped out of the car, nearly dropping my beloved instant noodles in the process. I stumbled back into the store and called the police, my heart pounding in my chest. Dave, seemingly unfazed by my reaction, calmly climbed into the driver's seat and sped away in his own car before help could arrive. When the police finally got there, I explained the bizarre encounter, the unsettling confession, and the eerie appearance of Dave in my car. They took my statement and assured me they would do their best to locate him. After what felt like hours of questioning, they eventually dropped me off at my house, still shaken to the core. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if I hadn't noticed Dave in my rearview mirror, if I had simply driven away with him sitting silently in the back seat. The thought sent shivers down my spine, and sleep eluded me. In the days that followed, I kept my doors locked and my eyes peeled for any sign of Dave. I never saw him again, and the police couldn't locate him either. It was as if he had vanished into thin air, leaving me with a lingering sense of dread. To this day, I can't help but replay that creepy encounter in my mind. What did Dave mean when he said he had to repeat something wrong? Why was he texting someone in my car, and where did he go after he drove away? The unanswered questions continue to haunt me, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most unsettling experiences can happen when you least expect them.